Well, a very warm welcome to RPTV. Is the racing Post Arkle that comes under the anti-post scrutiny of Nick Watts and Graham Rodway. Great to see you then, gentlemen. Now, this time last year, a horse called Sprinter Sacra was murdering all before him and going to Cheltenham on the back of some impressive displays. It's a stable companion, Simon Sig, or Simon Seg, I believe it's pronounced after a South African vineyard. I digress. He leads the market, top price 5 to 6, Nick, and on what he's done so far, you'd say connections are vindicated in choosing to go down the chasing route as opposed to a crack at the champion hurdle. Yeah,
I mean, he's won both starts very easily, hasn't he? He's jumped well, no errors particularly. I wouldn't say they're the hardest races in the world that they picked for him to go and win. But I think when you go over fences, all you want is a positive experience. When you start off first couple of times, you want him to enjoy it. You want him to look as though he's relishing the big fences rather than hurdles, and he looked to be doing that. You know, but again, he wasn't put under any pressure. I think the key to it is the fact that, like you said, he could have gone down the champion hurdle route with him this season. He was 160 rated hurdle last season, won the Neptune Investments very, very, very comfortably, and I'm sure he would have been a big player in the champion hurdle this season, but he's housed in the same stable as obviously Grandaway and Darlan and those kind of horses, so they've decided to go over fences, and I think that was very informative. They obviously felt that he was going to take to it, and he has done. Hasn't proved an awful lot, but yeah, he was such a good hurdler. He left such a strong impression on me when he won at Cheltenham last season. I think he would have won the Supreme Novices had he gone for that. Don't think trip makes much of an issue to him. 2 mile forward, 2 miles, it doesn't matter. Looks to have a huge amount of pace.
He's visually impressive, but purely on form grounds, i.e. the horse he beat on his chase debut was rated 6 stone inferior over hurdles. Does he deserve to be 5 to 6 to win an Arkle?
I don't think there deserves to be the discrepancy between him and Overturn. Whatever you think about Overturn over fences so far, he was actually rated £4 superior to Simon Zig over hurdles. So you look at it on those grounds, and he probably shouldn't be as short as he is. An Overturn, I mean, he went to Sandown first time out, one of the most difficult tracks in the country to jump, and he seemed to jump around it very well. So he's obviously taken to fences too. Probably shouldn't be such a big gap between them. I imagine the bookmakers thinking is that Overturn is slightly more exposed than Simon Zig.
Okay, well, that's interesting stuff there. And thanks for your tweets. We've had them flooding in, tweets galore. Owen sent in saying, look, lads, don't bother taking your coats off. Simon Zig's won. Just don't bother filming it and go home. That's good. And then, Graham, we've had some other interesting tweets mentioning the aforementioned Overturn. William Kenjani's tweeted in saying, are we missing the obvious? Overturn's just an each-way steal. It's a cracky each-way bet. There'll potentially be a small field. But the most interesting one, which I wanted to mention, which was from Paul Jeffers. Thank you, Paul. He makes a very strong, cogent case for Overturn over Simon Sig, and he says the only time Simon Sig got in a battle, he threw the towel in, referring to his defeat to Fingal Bay at Sandown over hurdles. And he says he will have to out-battle Overturn to win an Arkle. What would be your take on that?
That's a good point. I wouldn't say he threw the towel in. He just didn't find quite as much as he promised coming there on the bridle for one reason or another. At the time, you've got to remember that Fingal Bay went off odds on for that race, was in probably the form of his life. Really, really likes testing ground, and it was very testing that day at Sandown. And possibly Simon Sig didn't enjoy the ground quite as much as his rival, and came up against a rival who was bang on his game on the day. And he subsequently proved that he's a far better horse than Fingal Bay anyway. That is a slight problem though. He's done everything so easily. It's hard to know quite how good he is, you know, because he wins everything on the bridle. He's had these 2 chases this year, really all to himself. Nothing's taken him on for the lead. He's been able to go off and make his own rhythm, get into a rhythm of jumping. That isn't going to happen in the Arkle because Overturn's going to be in there, and William Kenjani says Overturn's probably going to be placed. I can't really see any reason why Overturn won't make the frame. The problem is he lacks the star quality that Simon Sig obviously brings to the table, and some of these others also bring the potential to be something better than a champion hurdle second. Certainly Simon Sig does. And although that's far respectable for Overturn, I just can't see any reason why it will improve on being placed at the festival in this race.
Do you see Overturn getting Simon Sig off the bridle? And then if he does, do you think he will find as much as there is perceivably supposed to be under the bonnet in Simon Sig's case?
It's difficult to say, isn't it? Because we haven't. The only time we have seen Simon Sig really come off it and have to race, he did get beat. You know, I'll give you that point. But the whole point about this thing that we're making, that is being made here, is that this is going to be a completely different test to anything that Simon Sigg has faced over fences so far. And as a result of 5 to 6, or whatever he is at odds on, you've got to be taking him on, because we don't know how he's going to react to these differences. I haven't had that wow moment with Simon Sigg about him, whereas coming into last year's Arkle, I felt that Sprinter Sacre was something very, very special.
Okay, well, Simon Sigg's going to go to the game spirit by all accounts. So if I had to nail you between the two, which do you think represents a better value at this stage?
I think they're both too short, actually. I think the problem with Overturn is you can back him each way, but he's 5 to 1. What's the point? You know, he's probably not going to beat Simon Sigg, and he won't win the race. I can't believe he'll win the race. He'll probably place, but you're going to get a little bit more than your money back if he places. I can't see the point in backing him each way. And Simon Sigg, is too short of 5 to 6, but is the absolute superstar potential in the race. Okay,
Nick, the Irish Challenge is almost started to peter out in some respects, of the likes of Oscars Well proving, well, I think it'd be fair to say, disappointing this season since going over fences. But Arvika Legionnaire actually fell in the Irish Arkle recently. I mean, what do you weigh him up at? I mean, his trip has been a big talking point. His hurdle days for 3 miles. He's now running over 2 over fences. What do you think Mullins is thinking, and more importantly, what do you think you're thinking?
Yeah, like you said, it's a tricky one, because when he was a novice hurdler, he went for the Albert Bartlett, and he ran a really good race for a long way. He didn't quite get home, so you can see why they've dropped him in trip, and he's looked very effective, particularly in Ireland. On right-handed tracks, I would say, I think it was very impressive in the Drinmore, and when he made his chase debut back in the kind of spring, summertime at Punchestown. Looked very, very good there. Hasn't looked quite the same horse to me going left-handed for whatever reason. I don't know if he's got a particular preference. Might be that he has got a slight edge going the other way around, because he did jump out to his right when he beat Oscars Well at Christmas. Wasn't hugely impressed with that performance, because as we said, Oscars Well for me has been very disappointing since he's gone over fences, and was again the other day when Beneficent beat him. And then of course Arvika Legionnaire fell last time out.
And Arvika Legionnaire is gone. Arvika Legionnaire down there, and Oscars Well is in front now by 2.5 lengths to Beneficent.
I think he's a very promising horse. I think he's very, very talented. I think if you give him a lead, then he's very, very dangerous. That won't happen in the Arkle. One thing I would say about the Drinmore, everyone's raving about it, and they're right to, because it was a superb performance, but I think he was about 15 lengths clear from a very early stage. You give a horse like that some rope, and he's going to make the most of it, because normally he is a very fluent jumper. I'm not sure this is the right race for him. I think if he went to the Powers Gold Cup and those Irish Grade 1s later in the season, especially at Punchestown and Fairy House going right-handed, I think it'd be very hard to beat. I'm not quite sure about this race, and I'm not quite sure Willie Mullins is quite as confident as once he may have been about coming for this.
Could run in the Juicen.
Could run in the Juicen. He'd get 2 mile 4, no problem at all. We know that. And it might be a slightly easier race for him than taking on Simon Sigg. Over 2 miles. It seems to have only one way of going, and that seems to be going hard from the front. Overturn's got a similar way of going too. I'm not sure about him for this particular race, although I am a fan of the horse, you know, more generally.
And Graham, we should touch upon Nicky Henderson's other big representative at the top of the market here, Captain Conan. Still some conjecture as to which trip he will run at. He's got an entry coming up over 2.5 miles soon. Is it a case of wait and see with that? I mean, Henderson doesn't seem to know himself, or is it a case of trying to keep Simon Sigg and Captain Conan apart in some respects?
He's a very good horse, I think, Captain Conan. Whether he's going to run in the Arkle or the Juicen will probably be determined by whether he wins the race at Sandown that he's going to run in, which is over 2.5. I personally think that he could be a Gold Cup horse in time. I really do think he is a top-class horse. I've been very impressed with him this season, winning twice over 2 miles. Beating useful horses on both occasions. But to me, and to all intents and purposes, in Captain Conan shapes like a stayer, he looks like he'll be a really good horse over further, and I expect him to run the Juicen.
Okay, well, I sense you're not overly confident on those that we've mentioned there, Graham. Looking for a bit of value outside that, where would you be going?
Well, assuming that the only way that Simon Sigg's probably going to get beaten is on testing ground, then you've got to look for an horse that likes testing ground and hope that the ground comes up soft on the day. And I think Fago, Nicholls' lightly raced 5-year-old, has got a strong chance if it does come up testing. He won nicely on his debut in Britain. Newbred, I'm not really sure what he beat, but he won it easily. He was given a similar Racing Post rating to that Courto Star was given when Courto Star first burst on the scene. I'm not suggesting he's quite that good, but Nichols runners usually improve a good deal with racings, and he said before the race, Nichols, that he'd only had this horse for only a short time. So
assistant Dan Scouter said he would come on a bundle for that run in the immediate post-race interviews.
Well, and you would generally expect that. And if he does come on a good deal for that run, then he wouldn't have to improve a huge amount to certainly shake up Overturn and RV Collisionaire and that lot. Who knows if he's good enough to beat Simon Sigg? But each way at 12s, I'd rather back him at 12s than Overturn at 5 to 1.
Okay, an exciting prospect. Fago is then around the 12 to 1 mark. That's Graham's advice. And then Nick, I mean, we're going to look for something, take on those at the top. Can you seek out any each way value?
Yeah, I think there quite possibly might be. It's a horse called Tap Knight, trained by Lucinda Russell, bought by JP quite recently before his Chase debut at Ayr. Which he won very nicely indeed. I mean, the form's pretty worthless in the context of an Arkle beat horse of James Hewitt's who got thrashed last time. So that wasn't particularly encouraging. But the way he did it was very encouraging. He jumped really well. This was his first run over fences at Ayr. Did it very nicely. And if you go back to his hurdles form last season, he actually beat Captain Conan 2 lengths in the Grade 2 at Kelso. It's encouraging that JP thought enough of him to buy him in the first place. Lucinda Russell is a trainer very much on the up. She proved with Brindisi Breeze that if you give her the right material, she knows how to get a festival winner. Yeah. These are the kind of horses you want to see running in the Arkle. You don't want the race just to be given to Simon Sigg. You want to see these promising horses taking him on and giving him a race. Massive potential to shorten, and we were discussing before he came in, this might boil down to like a 5 or 6 runner race in the end. If Tap Knight's one of those 6, then you're going to get paid out for 3rd place, and you know it's not ridiculous to think that he might be able to sneak a place, and 40 to 1 is a big price for a horse who I think has got quite a lot of potential. Oh,
that's excellent stuff. Yeah, strong case there for Tap Knights. Now, very quickly after my 15 seconds of fame, I'm with you on Fago generally. I still think 12 to 1 is a good price, but there's a horse lurking here, a bit of an unknown quantity, is A Charlie. Originally he was seen as an out-and-out stayer, as a warrior, as you like to describe them as, Graham. His trip's been a big talking point. It looks like he'll go for the Jewson, but it's interesting he's got an Arkle entry, and Willie Mullins in today's papers actually said he could go for the Jewson as well. Well, he's 33 to 1. On his rating, on his actual form, he doesn't have a great deal to find with these, as the price would suggest.
Oh, this horse is a really interesting horse. I think he could be very, very good, actually, Charlie. He's been beaten over 3 miles the last 2 starts. He traded at 1.01 and 1.2 in running before getting caught on both occasions. And travelling strongly, and coming back down in trip looks sure to suit him. But how far down is Willie Mullins going to bring him? Is he going to come down to 2.5? Is he going to come down to 2? Wherever he runs, I'd be hugely interested in him at Cheltenham. But he's 40 to 1. Would you want to take a chance on him running the Arkle? If he turns up in the Arkle, you won't be anywhere near 40 to 1. And in some ways, the fact that he might not run is factored into the price. So I think it's a fair price, and I can see him running well.
Okay, brilliant then. So it's Tap Knight for Nick, it's Fago for Graham. I'm weighing in with Fago, and I'm going to buy a second bite of the cherry as well, because I think A Up Charlie may not run, but he's worth chancing at the price. Thanks for watching. See you again soon.